Hello, my name is Dale Wilhite. I'm right now near Panama City, Florida, for about another few weeks. If you want to find out anything about me, you go to MySpace where I have a page. I also have an account with Twitter and Facebook. This here is about the most terrifying part of a hurricane. And I wrote down, trying to remember all the hurricanes I've been through or brushed by. The first one was Alma in 1966, Miami. Inez in 66 down in Homestead Air Force Base. We got brushed by Camille when we were at Tyndall Air Force Base up in Panama City. Agnes, I'll never forget Agnes. In June 9, 1972, that's when we were up in Marianna, Florida. My dad didn't think the hurricane was all that bad, although the winds were over 90. And the eye of it actually went through Apalachicola, though sometimes the internet, you go on the internet and it said it went through Panama City. Actually, the eye went through Apalachicola. But we drove home in the middle of it. Only people on the highway driving back to Marianna. My dad just couldn't wait to get back home and check on his house here. The next one was Eloise in 75, Alina in 85, Kate in 85, Earl and George in 98. And I was actually in Hawaii when the Nikki hit on September 12, 1992. I actually got to Hawaii on, I believe it was right around the 3rd of December of 91, right, because I flew from Florida straight out. And then when the Nikki hit, it was on September 12th. Actually, I was working at the King Kamehameha at the time, and the hurricane, which was a Category 4, was going to the south of the Big Island. I lived in Kula, there on the west part of Hawaii. And about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and there was a 6-hour difference between there and here in where I'm living at now in Eastern Time Zone, even though technically I live in Central Time Zone, or where we're located is in Central Time Zone. My parents called me and told me that there's a hurricane coming your way. I told them no, because it went to our south. I mean, they didn't even hardly mention it on the television stations before I came to work that night at 8 o'clock. And I stepped outside, and it's raining. You see lightning just flashing all over the place. And, you know, in that huge hotel there right along the coast, you couldn't hear anything. And man, and about 1 o'clock, about 12 o'clock that day, because it was now about 1 in the morning, the eye of it actually went across Kauai. That hurricane could have easily, the eye of it could have actually crashed right into the Big Island during the night, and most of the people on that island would not have even known about it. I don't even remember any tsunami alarms going off. No warnings, no nothing. They do have, you know, hurricane alarms, you know, too. But nothing went off. And the TV stations did not even bother to broadcast anything, or didn't even come on the air, the local ones, till 6 in the morning. I got home at around 4:15 or 4:20, and there was nothing on the television. And that thing has already brushing up. And so the place where I was renting a room from, I had to wake these people up. And as the daylight came, boy, you could see those clouds just to get it. And boy, they were coming through there. And this thing could have crashed right into the Big Island. And the local weather people there and the local television stations were so incompetent and so irresponsible that a lot of people could have died because they refused to do their jobs. They refused to get up, I guess, out of bed. I guess they had to wait till their 6 o'clock broadcast before they would report on it. Yeah, you have cable, but not everybody in Hawaii has cable. A lot of people in Hawaii don't even have power, especially on the Big Island. You have a lot of Filipinos that live out in the coffee farms, I call them. And, you know, they get coffee all the time. And they would have never known anything. And a lot of them didn't know what was happening. They had to find out from other people. So it was lucky that the eye of it did not come across the Big Island, even though I think one kid drowned. Instead of going to school, he decided he was going to go surfing, and they tried to tell him not to go surfing, and he went anyway, and he drowned. Anyhow, what I wanted to say was that the most terrifying part of a hurricane, you know, of course, if you're on the coast, it would be the water, be the heavy rains. It's, of course, the tornadoes. The tornadoes kill so many people, you know, and the water spouts, you know, and so forth. That's the most terrifying part of it, because when you're going through a hurricane, and I can remember, which one was it? There's so many of them. Kate. That was on 11/21/85. Remember, in Mexico Beach, Florida, the Hurricane Kate came across right through there. We were up in Wewa, Hitchcock, Florida. And that's probably, about 15 miles from the coast. You know, at least parts of Wewa. And, buddy, it's that big gush of wind. You don't know if that's a tornado coming because you can hear the trees cracking and things like that. Hear things being blown around. And buddy, that's the most terrifying. When I'm in hurricane. That's the most terrifying part of it is to me. I don't. The wind itself is not really that big of a deal to me. But when that, it's not knowing if that big rush of wind is actually a tornado. I can remember in '98 when I worked at the Marriott on Panama City Beach, we had 2 hurricanes. And that was the same thing. I remember the last one, which was George. And that was on September 25th, '98. And I remember all the wind blowing back and forth, outside here. I just stayed out in a small travel trailer at the time in my parents' yard and just stayed there. And because I was driving back and forth to Panama City so I could save some money so I could go back to Vegas. And that was the most terrifying part was, you just don't know if that big rush of wind is a tornado or not. And that's what really does a lot of damage sometimes. And sometimes people don't realize that a house or a structure was not just hit by hurricane winds, but it was hit by a twister. We have had one little twister here that hit our yard once. Didn't really hit our house all that much. I remember being right here in this room, and this was back, I guess, in the early '80s, maybe mid '80s. One time I was sitting here and thunderstorm, a little bit popped up, call them popcorn thunderstorm, just popped up, and all of a sudden it started raining, and then I began to realize that the rain's, going sideways now. And then I heard that crackling sound, and then had a little tornado come over, just kind of lifted up a shed and went down here to what's called the Howard Street Landing and picked a shed up down there and slammed it down. That's about the closest thing to a tornado I've come to, and I'm sure those are 10 times or 100 times worse than any hurricane, because a hurricane you can pretty much get away from. But in those hurricanes, when people stay, one thing they need to remember is that they may not be the hurricane winds that kill them or injure them or destroy their homes or wherever they're at. It may be those tornadoes in them. And that's the most terrifying part of a hurricane. So if you decide to stay in a hurricane next time around and think, well, the hurricane winds aren't going to be so bad, it's just going to be 90-mile-an-hour winds, I got some news for you. You can still get killed because it's the tornadoes. I think I was mostly in Colorado from '99 to 2000, just till about a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. And they've got a couple of hurricanes there, but I remember some of the hurricanes that have hit during that time. Not far from here over in Bloodstown, I think a whole family was killed, by a hurricane that was heading for, I guess, Pensacola. But the tornadoes were spawned off from the outer edge of the hurricane and killed people way over in Bloodstown, which is about 400 miles away, 350, 400 miles away. That's the other thing about hurricanes. Even if you're just on the edge of it, where you're living at or whatever, you can still be killed or injured or have your home destroyed because of the tornadoes that are spawned that just go on the outer edge of them. And sometimes these tornadoes can be spawned from a hurricane. We're just a thunderstorm from it. Just kind of goes straight out of it and kills people, and a tornado spawns out of it. So you're anywhere near a hurricane, you have to be aware of the tornadoes. And if you think you're safe because you're on the outer edge, think again. You are not safe. I can assure you, you are not safe. So I would be aware and take into consideration that if you're ever about to be hit by a hurricane, and I'm sure there are people who may see this who have been, please be aware you can be injured, killed, or have your home destroyed, or your dwelling place, or your business, or whatever, even if you're just on the outer edge of it, because it's those tornadoes in them that is the most terrifying part of it all. Anyway, I can't go more than 10 minutes on this tape. I hope that gives some information. If you've never been in a hurricane, just remember that. Get out of it. Go away from them. And get even away from the outer edge of it because you're not even safe there. Thanks for your time. Bye.